Okay, so this time we're going to add some interaction, which is to like type a word and highlight that word in the text. So we're going to copy this example 7 and we're going to make it example 8 here. So before going, there are a couple of things that I need to correct last time. Anyway, by the way, so I changed the environment setting to this example 8. And also in this initial PI, I changed example 7 to 8. And also in this backend, I also changed example 7 to 8. Okay. So now it is exactly the same as what we have in example 7. But I have made a couple of corrections. All right. So the first is that in the modules, and I remember that when I receive the data from the backend, actually in this backend PY, what I did is that I sent back a stringified string. All right. So by this setting, so when I catch that from the front end, it should be a string. So I need to correct this. Last time I said that regardless of whether it is stringified, it will be a JSON. It will be a JSON, which is wrong. It should be a string. So in that case, I need to change it back to the JSON again. Okay. So this is the first thing to correct. The other is that I made some changes. So the first is that I instead of so having the string like response or whatever, I'm just gonna display the value from that data, which is in this field called response data from backend. Okay, so so in other words, I'm just gonna display the text without the field name there. Okay, and then I'm gonna display that response text. So I also made a couple of changes in this make elements. So basically these are to like add a format. So now the data are all using this MSN serif font instead of the default Times New Roman. Then also I changed the font size and also add some so enlarge the line height so that the space between the lines will be bigger. All right, so now also forced to break the words. So like for a hyperlink, which is very long, it will be break regardless of whether it has been finished. Anyway, so with all of these changes in now, the so it looks like that, right? So if I bring it, and it's going to be like this. So yeah, the font has been changed. This is the line space. So anyway, so this is the change I made and the corrections I have to state here. All right, so I'm gonna close that. Oh, sorry. Yes, let's just bring it back because I have something to explain. So what I'm going to do now is let's say that we submit this and we have this text here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a box called the text area here. All right, then inside I'm going to type a word. For example, I'm going to type the word adherence. And then when I'm typing this, this adherence will be changed into bold font weight and red so as to highlight it. All right. Then I'm also going to add a button called update, which is basically lock up those highlighted places so that I can, in this text area, I can type other words, for example, antihypertensives, and it's going to highlight that again. Then I'm going to add a button here as the reset to let it come back to this unhighlighted original text format. So this part is purely by JavaScript. So we don't need to change the backend Python Python script. Oh, by the way, so in this make elements, I also changed to now I have the default value of A instead of the original keyword 1, keyword 2. And also I have changed the label of the message box to text instead of the original message box. Okay, so now carry on. As I said, I'm going to add a text area. Okay, so it will be like this. Okay, and then for this one, I'm going to have some style setting. Basically, it will be it will be the same as I had for the div box. It will be similar. Okay, so I'm gonna put it here. The only thing that is different is that I shrink the minimum height to 50 pixels. I think that's good enough. Okay, so with this, let's just go back and bring it back and see what it looks like and see. So there is a text area here. Of course, in between, I need to add a paragraph so that these two are not too close to each other. So there are many different ways, like you can set an outside margin of that, but I'd rather put it like this so that explicitly these two will be in separate lines instead of one. So here I'm gonna use Control F5. It's better to use Control F5 rather than using this because the JavaScript needs to be reloaded, and this one does not update the JavaScript behind it. Okay, so now I have this text area, right? Okay, so then for this text area, I'm going to have some actions. All right, I'm going to have some actions, and imagine that I'm going to have an action called do something or called yeah, so when there is a key up here, you're going to do something, and I'm going to call that highlight words, which is a function that I'm going to build. But for now, I don't have this function yet. All right. So then I have to construct this function. So I'm going to go to this module D3. I'm going to add a function on top of the existing one. So this one will be highlight. So let's just go back and see. Yes. Yeah, so this one will be called highlight words, as I stated in that button, right? No, so as I stated when there is a key up in this area. So in this highlight words, so what I'm gonna do, so the first is that I'm gonna say so like console.log highlight word. Okay, highlight words, highlight the word, and that's it. Okay. So with this, and let's hit Control F5 again here. So I'm gonna bring it up. So let's submit this. Actually, I don't really need this, but I'm gonna go to this inspection in this console, and it says that this one is not important. This is okay. So here I'm gonna type in a word, whatever the word I'm. So let's say end. You will see that. So the function is working now because it says that highlight the word, whatever. Okay. All right. So then, based on that, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna have the values that has been inputted here. So I'm gonna call that let the input value to be this. Okay. And then I'm going to change that again. At this time, I'm going to change that to highlight a word and the input word. Okay, so then I'm going to go to here, just enlarge it. I'm going to Control F5 to update the JavaScript. So this part actually so is not connected yet. So regardless of whether the message, the text box has any contents, but whatever I type here, so whatever I am typing here is going to be show in this console log. Okay, all right. So this proves that this one is working. But what I'm going to do next? The next is that imagine that so I have this existing word, existing HTML, and that HTML is from this message box, which is this message box. All right, so I'm going to have all the text from this message box. All right, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to have the text here and find all the words that matches this input word and highlight that. Right. All right. So to highlight that is like we already have this input word. So the way to highlight that is to say that, okay, so let's make a new string, and the new string is like whenever the highlight word, for example, if I highlight the word adherence, then I'm going to change that to span style, well, change the color, change the weight, and then the span, and I'm going to put the word adherence here. So now, like the original part of adherence would be replaced by this whole string, and this one in HTML means that it should be in red color and is highlighted. Okay, that's how it works. But I'm only going to do that when this input word has something. So if it is empty, it is not going to do anything. So that's my plan. Okay, so I'm going to wrap that with a condition. Okay. All right. So now I have the new text here. Then in the original text, what I need to do is that I need to replace the original text, original HTML with this new text. All right. So the simplest way is to say that I'm going to have a new HTML, right? So I'm going to have new let new HTML. This new HTML will be the existing HTML, right? And then it's going to replace, so I'm going to replace the input word. So when you have this input word, I'm going to change that to the new string. All right, so that is my plan. Yeah. Does that sound good? Oh yeah. So now, so in the text, when it says, for example, the text is simply as drag adherence, right? Then it will be replaced by this adherence will be replaced by like the span, whatever. So which means that this adherence part here will be in red and highlighted. All right. So the next is that I'm gonna put this new string back into this message box. All right. So now the message box is going to have new text in which the input word adherence will be replaced by span, whatever. So it will be highlighted. So let's just test if it works. Okay. So I have replaced it, and I have this. Okay. So now what I'm going to try to do is like, what if I type in adherence? Oh, there is an error. So basically it says that, well, I cannot read the existing HTML. So what is this? No, it is not like this. So I'm just gonna simply have this HTML. Okay. So I guess there was a typo here. So I'm gonna have this HTML and replace that. And now let's just hit Control F5 and run it again. Just enlarge it, and we're gonna type in adherence. Yeah, sounds like it sort of worked, but the only problem is that it sounds like it gets messed up, yeah, somewhere. So okay, so yeah, so it sounds like it absolutely messed up. So every time it's gonna so let's just go into the inspection and see what is happening here. Um, So now it says, yeah, so when you type A, then it's going to insert a span and put it A inside. And then when I type D, it's going to do the same. So now the whole text is absolutely broken, because every time I type in a letter, it's going to do something, and there is a lot of span inside, which is not what I want. Right? So what I expected is that I want to like only highlight this adherence part without changing the rest of that. So the the mechanism of doing that is not that simple. Right? So I have to go back and find a different mechanism of doing that. So one of the way of doing that is that, well, just going back to when the first time I render the text into this box, I can create I can create an attribute to hold the original text. All right. So when I bring the sentence into this message box, not only I'm going to show it, but also I'm going to save this text into a field in this box called the data. Right? So by doing that, I'm going to show you. So I bring it up. Then if you inspect this div, you will see there is a field called data somewhere. Yeah, so it is called data, which is here, and that data actually contains the same contents here. So now I always have an original backup of that that string, right? So now let's go back to this part. So instead of getting the existing HTML from this HTML, I'm gonna get it from the attribute called data. All right. So this means that every time when I type something, it is always going to go back and find this original text and add this, replace the word with this part. Okay. And now let's go back and see whether it works better. So I'm going to bring up this text and I'm going to type adherence. You see that now it sounds like it works better because every time I type in something, every time I type in something, it's going to start from the original text. So I type in A, it is going to bring up everything without any highlight and highlight that A. If I type A and D, it's going to highlight both A and D and H and both A, D, and H. So that is the concept to say that now it is going to highlight the words I have. Okay, so far so good. But what if after highlighting this adherence, I want it to stay highlighted, but now I'm going to switch to a second word, like for example, anti-hypertensive. Yeah. So this currently the setting does not work because once I type in this anti-hypertensives, the adherence is not highlighted. So I have to go back and fix this problem. So again, I'm gonna play the similar trick. So this time when I load the data, not only that I'm gonna load it into this data area, but also I'm gonna load that into an area called formatted data. So the first time, when the first time it was loaded, so the data in formatted data contains the same HTML string, which is not formatted at all. Okay, so that is my first plan, just like that. The second is that, the second is that instead of bringing the existing HTML from data, I'm always gonna bring it from the formatted data attribute, right? So now I have two attributes. One is the data, which contains the unformatted. So let's just make it explicit and call it unformatted data. So I have two areas. One is called unformatted data. One is called the formatted data. Okay. So and I'll always bring it into the formatted and the thing into the formatted data. All right. So now with that change, then I can like have some mechanism, like once the data is, so I'm gonna, okay, I have a typo here. I don't have a D. Yeah, this is missing. I'm just gonna add it back. Okay, so now I have this, and it's the same. So I have the sentence, and remember that every time I'm gonna change something, change it based on this this formatted data. But I'm not gonna save it right now. So every time I'm gonna change the text there, I'm gonna load the unformatted data, which is the same as the unformatted data, right? So the next is then I'm gonna do something which is called a lockup. So I'm gonna have a button here to say update. So when it says update, it is gonna save this formatted data into the attribute called the formatted data. All right. So this is the way to keep it updated. All right. So to do so, I'm gonna go back to that make element. Right. So after I have this, I think I don't need this inspect anymore. Can close it. Yeah. So to make it, yeah. So now, so after this input box, I'm gonna have I'm gonna have one button. So and also before this button, I'm gonna have a paragraph to like make a space. So then I'm gonna have in the body, I'm gonna have a button, and that button is called update, which is gonna be here. And we're gonna run a function called update formatted HTML. So for now, I don't have this function yet, but I can add it into this modules. So I'm gonna have this function like this. So I'm gonna go into this module, and in front of the function highlight, I'm gonna put in this formatted HTML function. So the function basically is going to replace the formatted data from the formatted data using the existing data, which has been having some format, like some highlight thing. Right? So it's gonna take the existing or the current HTML and save that into the format data so as to lock it up. Okay, so now let's just go back and test that again. I have the sentence. Then I'm gonna go to this adherence, and it is red here. I'm gonna update it. So now the text here, unless I refresh the page, it is with this adherence highlighted. Then I can delete this part, and then I can type in anti-hypertensive. Yeah. So now it works, and both of these two are highlighted. Then I can update it again, and hopefully I'm gonna I'm going to do it right. So now I can type in the third word. Let's go to drugs. Okay, so that works, right? All right. So just to make it complete, so I'm going to add a button here called reset. So when it is reset, it's going to go back to the unformat situation. All right. So going back to this add modules, I'm going to have another button, and this button side by side with that update button, and this one is going to do something that's returned to the formatted HTML. All right. So and this function is like this. Okay. So this function is to say that I'm going to get the contents from the unformatted data attribute. I'm going to have that, and I'm going to render it into this box, and also I'm going to replace the existing formatted data. Okay, so with all of that, we're going to refresh it, bring it back again, and this time let's type adherence. So it is highlighted and update, then drugs highlighted again, update. But I changed my mind, I just reset it, and now all of that is not highlighted. Alright, so to make it more complete, I add a line in both of these update and reset functions. Basically, it's just that once you update that, it's going to clear this text, this text area box. So I'm going to bring it up. So I type in adherence. It's highlighted, then I update that, and this one is going to be disappeared. And then I have this drugs, highlighted, update. But when I update, so it is going to disappear. And if I, so let's have this like transplant, all right? And if I hit the reset, it's also going to disappear. All right, so that's how it works. Well, the only problem I have here is that, well, so you go back to the adherence. When I type in adherence, it only highlights the first instance of adherence. Actually, there are more of these words, and in this case, of course, I want to highlight all of these words instead of just having one highlighted, right? Yeah, so this is because the replace function by default it only replace the first instance instead of all of them. So imagine that you have a fixed string to replace, right? So like in this case, if you have adherence, okay, so then you can use this regular expression, and you put a G there, so that it will know that, well, whenever it is in adherence, I'm going to replace that, with the new word. So this one works to replace all the instance of this adherence in the text, right? So so this is a hard coding. Let's just test it that. So when I said adherence, you will see that these two adherents are all replaced by, right? But the problem is that we're going to have a parameter, a variable instead of the string here. So we cannot use the same format. We have to use something called make an expression. So we're going to make an expression. So this expression says that, well, so you're going to make an expression using this, right? So using no, not this. Sorry. So should be it should be this. So you should use this. All right. So you're gonna make an expression, insert this variable's value. In this case, it would be adherence, but it can be any, right? And you're gonna use this expression to create a string sort of like this, right? Then you're going to replace this part with this or 2. Then it works. Then no matter what you type in here, it will be replaced by, so let's just bring it so we can say adherence. See that all of these adherence instances are updated. Okay, so let's reset it. So now, so do we have more words there? Duh, let's try duh. Yeah, so all the words like duh is going to be highlighted here. So we can also add an I here, which is to ignore the case, whether it is capitalized or in lowercase. So, and then let's do it here. So now, if I say D, so even the first one, despite that the first letter is capitalized, it is still going to be replaced. The problem is that when it is replaced, it is not going to go back to the original title. It's going to follow the case that I put here. So that is a bug, but I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so it's not like now it works, but imagine that. Now let's try this case here. So inside, actually, if we inspected this part and we inspected the HTML in this part, and actually we can say that the string include like a tag, then a span, whatever, right? Because that is how we highlight the word, right? So let's just go to this this div, and in the aim of the current study of adherence, whatever. So you will see yeah. So actually it has a span, and in the span it has the word D, right? So it is like that. But that's going to cause a problem because, you know, like if I put in the word span again, so sorry. So let's see. So if I have this adherence, okay, so I update to lock it up. Now in this text, it has a span here. So now what if I put in span here? All right, so then it's going to be messed up because it's going to put the span inside, and then you know, it will treat that span, which is a tag, as the normal text. So this is a bug. But again, I'm going to leave it here because actually, you know, to replace the text would be more complicated. Then we can use the machine learning package to deal with that instead of doing it manually. That wheel has been created. All right, so basically it's like that. So so it shows the concept. So it still has bugs which can be fixed easily with those natural language packages. So I'm not going to go into those details. But I just show you the concept that so now what we can do is that we can use a search to bring in some context, you know, bring some text like a sentence, right? And then we can have an interaction with them. For example, I can type in the adherence to highlight all the words adherence there. So this is getting more close to the things we want to do. Like in the real case, what we want to do is that we want to bring in some contents, you know, like a text, a sentence, and then we want to tag those related words to a specific theme. You know, for example, like this research is kind of like it is related to the adherence research. So by having this word, then we can know that how it appears in this text and give us a visual, you know, a visual sense of how it looks like, right? And then with these words, then we can pick up these words, we can put it into a category. Let's say that, okay, so what are the themes I'm looking at? So the first one might be adherence, all right? So then in that case, I'm gonna say that within adherence, I have this keyword called adherence, and then in this text, it's gonna show me the word adherence there. right? So the second is that, for example, let's go to this B. Yeah. So this B sentence, it says that it has a cross-sectional word, right? And it is by, so sorry, let's go to C. Yeah. So the C is that it has a cost and quality adjusted lifetime analysis, right? So it is about adherence. So you can see that this one is about two themes. The first is, of course, it is related to adherence, right? So I'm going to update that. But the second is that it is also related to something called a cost-effective analysis. Like in here, I have the words like Markov, which is a common method used in such kind of research. But I also have this QALY, which is another keyword that is related to this type of research, you know. So then we can categorize that into like two different themes. One is called adherence, in which I have this keyword called adherence. And the other is cost-effective analysis. I have two keywords, which is QALY and Markov. All right, so, and then, so with the natural language package, we can make it more complicated. For example, we can find a set of synonym of this adherence, which is like compliance, whatever. So we can, then we can search not only for this adherence, but also for those keywords. And that can apply to another sentence, you know, which means that for another sentence, well, as long as I see this, this keyword adherence or a word compliance, I'm going to put that into the tag, you know, and highlight that. And it's the same concept if I have a theme called cost-effective analysis. Whenever I have these keywords, I'm going to highlight that, you know. Okay, so the other concept is that going back to this B sentence, we will see that, so it says that it's a cross-sectional study. So suppose that we want to include all the adherence studies, but we only want to include those randomized clinical trials or the observation trials of a cohort study. Then any word like it is a cross-sectional study, we're going to exclude that. So we can highlight this part in a different way. So for example, so previously we have highlighted the experience in red, but this one we can highlight that in gray, which means that whenever it is in gray, that is the word to indicate that study should be excluded. You know, these are the concepts that we're going to use to apply to this highlight things, which is going to make it visually more friendly for us to get a sense of how this sentence is about.